Hey guys, you're watching the Best Practices Show, where we take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all across the country. And in order to do great dentistry, you have to have a great team. But many of you are missing one of the most important ingredients to a high-performing team. So today, we're going to show you exactly what it is and how to do it with my dear friend, Barrett Straub, who's an amazing restorative dentist. Don't miss this. Grab a pen and hit the share button. We'll see you in a second. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show. We are having so much fun doing this, and thank you again for watching, and thank you for all your questions, your feedback, comments, everything. It's crazy. We are now up to 250,000 views a week, and over 15,000 people have joined and watching, and just crazy grateful. We are having so much fun talking about the things that you guys want to talk about. So please give us feedback. I know a lot of you are messaging us and telling us things that you want to see. I love it. Keep sending it to us, because we're going to do our best to make sure these are hugely valuable. And even after the show is live, keep watching it, because we're watching the metrics on that, and people are watching them late at night. So keep doing that. Now today, my good friend, I'm going to have him on. I'm going to bring him on in just a second. You're going to love him. And, the big piece of having a great practice is you can't do this alone. You have to have a great team. And I think everyone would agree with that. But a lot of times we're missing some of the key ingredients that makes a great team. And so we're going to be talking about that today. And just a couple show notes before we get started. If you're watching this, we are watching this live, or we're shooting this live on Facebook. So add a question right to the feed, and I'll ask Barrett himself, because I want you to get the most out of this. And then secondly, if you're watching this later on, continue to add the questions, and we're going to make sure that we get back to you and give you the right answers as you're thinking about some of these concepts. Now, today, our guest today, good friend of mine. I've watched him grow and develop into an amazing restorative dentist, and just a great leader in dentistry. And I got to meet you, Barrett, like years ago. It was in Seattle Study Club meeting. I think it was in Milwaukee, and you sat up right in front, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we had a great time the whole time. And then after it was over, you and I became great friends, and I've just watched your practice explode, and just your leadership skills, everything. Now, if people don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about your story and your background and where you practice.
Yeah, I practiced in Port Washington, Wisconsin, and that's where I grew up. So I didn't stray far from home. I graduated Marquette Dental School, probably about coming on 13 years, and I worked at this practice in this building as an associate for 2 years, and then my predecessor, my mentor, he retired, and I bought the practice. So I've been on my own about 11 years, and it's ironic. I mean, Kirk, it's an honor to be here. I love doing this show with you, but it's ironic because I've made so many mistakes doing this, and to be now the one talking about it, it's humbling, but it's a lot of fun. So hopefully my mistakes can help others do better in their own practice. That'd be my goal today.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. I mean, and you're a very humble man and a great dad, great business leader, everything. And I think this is what it's all about, is just nobody's perfect. We're all here to help each other in this great profession that we love. And so you and I are going to talk about there's so many topics I want to cover with you, but one of the things you do extremely well is how you communicate with your team, who is fantastic. And take us a little bit through that journey, because we call them, team reviews, growth conferences, whatever. That's one of the most important ingredients that's missing. But people are scared. They're afraid to do this. They do them horribly, or they do what's called an appointment to talk about my raise, and they give what are called hush raises. We can get into that. But why is this such an important cornerstone to your practice or any practice, this element?
Healthy communication with the team is just the number one pillar. When you are communicating in a healthy way with your team, awesome things can happen for patients. But yet it's really challenging and it's hard. And I think it was a couple weeks after I took over the practice. I'm on my own. I'm running the business, and I had a coaching opportunity with one of my assistants where I instructed her on some things she could do better on making that temporary. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. I thought that was a nice little interaction. I went back to the lab, and my other assistant, Leslie, comes on over, and she says, "What'd you say to Susie?" I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, she's bawling back there hysterically." And I thought, oh man, I thought that went well. So that was my first inkling, like, wow, you have a lot to learn on leadership and communication. And so that's really been the transformation for my practice. Is really me and how I communicate and how I lead my team. And every day we're working on communication. And so part of that communication is coaching reviews, right? And coaching reviews can be stressful and can cause a lot of anxiety. But if you have a habit or history of communicating in a healthy way, they're not that bad, even for the employees or the staff or the team. So my coaching reviews are a continuation, really, of how I'm trying to communicate with them on a daily basis.
Yeah. Now, I want to go through the details because we're going to talk about your habits, but you do them so well that you actually influenced how we completely teach it, because we started with the system, we gave it to you, you gave it back to us. I'm like, this is so much better than the way we teach it. So first of all, talk about the habit. So how often do you do these? When do you do these? Can you walk us through that?
Sure, absolutely. There's one formal review every year. And in the past, those have been, I mean, I don't like doing them at all in the past. And so I would procrastinate, and actually as my team that are always pushing me to do them in the past. So what has changed and what has made them easier for me and more productive is we do have one formal staff review. Okay. But these are a continuation of conversations I've had with each of the team members throughout the year. So I love 5 or 10 minute little check-ins, and where I have extra time and they have extra time, and I'll say, hey, let's go into my office real quick and just chat about something. And often that I don't really have an agenda, but I'm just checking in with them. How's their family? What's going on around here? What do you need from me? And you do that every once in a while. And then when it comes time for that high pressure, high stakes, once a year meeting, you have this history of chatting. And it's just a continuation. Hey, Susie, remember when we were chatting about a couple months ago, and one of the challenges you were facing was this and that? Tell me how that's going. Tell me how you dealt with that. And we just talk. Yeah. But I really think there's 3 aspects to a job, right? And this is what that you and I have worked on in the past. And one, certainly attitude, and one is your tasks, and the third is promoting dentistry, or I like to almost call it communicating with patients. And it's so common for us all to look at our tasks, and that's our job and how well we do our tasks. So if I'm a dental assistant, how well do I do forehanded dentistry? How well do I keep the sterilization in check? And that's just 1/3 of our job. So I really focus with them on, you have your tasks and you do those well. Let's look at these other 2 aspects as well and see where we can improve.
Right. Now let's go through each one of those, because, all of them require a little clarification. Now, do you still use the single sheets? Do you have a single sheet for each one of those 3 components? Or do you have something a little bit different?
I have, and I don't have it on me, but I have a diagram with these 3 circles, and they're overlapping: attitude, tasks, promoting dentistry, and another form which has the 3 categories with kind of some subtitles or things within that section that the team member and I kind of put a numerical value to, and that just kind of gets the conversation going, and allows us to talk about that topic. So that's kind of how I use it.
Absolutely. Now, a couple of things too. If you're watching this and you're a dentist, of all the things that you've tried, and this is my learning, and I'm sure, Barrett, you could agree with this, those are the three most important aspects of a team member doing well. This also works to huge benefit for the team member, because a lot of team members, if you're a team member watching this, one of your constant complaints or maybe challenges in dentistry is I don't get really honest, critical feedback about how to succeed at my job in a way that works mutually beneficial. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Even though I have made it, I've been very intentional about communicating, my team still wants more and they want to know where they stand. And I personally love feedback. And so, but it's still a challenge to give enough feedback and always, allow those team members to know, hey, you're doing an awesome job, or here's an area we need to work on a little more.
Mm-hmm. So you have them fill out these forms. Do you have them fill out a form and then you fill out them? Okay. And then you're both circling a number and you talk about the discrepancy or maybe the sameness in the numbers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I tell them the number isn't all that important. So if I give you a 7 and you give yourself an 8, okay, we're pretty much giving you the rating. If it's a 2 and an 8, okay, that's a big enough discrepancy. We got to chat about it. But really the number or the act of rating those is just kind of a springboard for talking right. About, the different things. So when I talk about attitude, for instance, we rate each other on time every day, positive outlook, leaving personal issues out of the workplace, accepting of change, a yes attitude, happy to be here, a desire to be your best. So these are kind of these soft science, touchy-feely stuff, but so important in the dental practice.
Right. And of all three, I would say those hands down the most important, just because you're going to spend more time. We could argue more time with your team than you do your own family sometimes in communicating with them. So having healthy people within the walls of your practice is critical, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, and then as far as, I don't see you having a whole lot of challenges with attitude in your practice, but how do you address them? Because some dentists might be watching this going, hey, Barrett, easy for you to say, but I got 2 or 3 that have challenges with attitude every day. What would you say?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think every dental practice struggles with it, including my own. I think we have to back up a little bit. I think what makes my coaching opportunities and my coaching reviews very worthwhile right now is that several years ago, I changed how I communicate with my team, especially during team meetings. And I became very open with them about my own shortcomings. I mean, we talked about it for several staff meetings. It was very vulnerable and very humbling. But when they see you as a human being and they know what challenges you are dealing with as a leader, 1, they're more quick to forgive, and 2, they're apt to help you. So I kind of set this environment of, hey, we're all human. We have our weak spots. Here are all mine. Let's talk about them. And I think that set a culture of it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to let someone know you need help. And now that helps. They know coming into their staff or their team review that, yeah, we're gonna talk about some of the things that you need help on, and it's okay because Barrett's there really to help me, not make my life miserable. So I think that is maybe the true key is setting an environment of open, humble, vulnerable communication, and then all of a sudden your staff reviews aren't all that big a deal. Yeah, because just 2 people trying to help each other become better, and that's what we're here for.
That is awesome. The transparency, it really adds itself to heavy levels of trust for you and your team. If we had a team meeting at my office about my shortcomings, those would be hours and hours long. So, so I get it. And really, as you get older, you're not willing to sugarcoat anything anymore. I think there's a good part of this aging process, especially in dentistry. You're just like, look, I'm just going to be honest. It's just so much easier just to be straightforward and honest. It's less stressful. It's easier on everybody, and that's what they're starving for anyway.
Yeah, just my wife and I are just on vacation, Kirk. We were out of the country. We got home late Sunday. And of course, I overbooked myself today, right? I say, Kirk, I'm going to come on and do your Facebook Live. And I'm also giving a talk tonight. for a community event. And I got home Sunday night and said, wow, I haven't really prepared for any of this. So I walked in Monday morning, like 3 hours of sleep, and I'm ornery. And because they know me and I talked about it, I said, girls, I just got to let you know I'm a little ornery, and here's why. And what that did is two things. One, it instantly allowed me to kind of calm down and get my head on right. And two, allowed them to say, okay, we're going to do everything we can to help his morning become more smooth. We get it. And the day went awesome. But that level of honesty and just being open is so huge. Yeah. You know, the dental team is more like a family than a work group, you know, and so they know if I'm anxious. They work 18 inches from me. And so, you know, my body language, my gestures, my mannerisms, they know what I'm feeling, whether I tell them or not. So it's better just to be open and honest with them.
Absolutely. And you better up your game here in a couple hours, because my wife and my daughter are coming in your office. So it's good stuff. Good stuff. Now go into task. Now, what does that really mean, though, when you talk about a team member's task? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. I mean, we have things like perform your primary job functions well and your secondary job functions. So everyone has these are my core tasks. These are what I do. But there's all these secondary tasks where it's maybe not just one person's job. It's whoever's available or whoever, you know, has the foresight to see I need to pitch in and help. Offer to help your teammates whenever possible. Constantly strive to fulfill a superior patient experience. And my big thing is consistency. How consistent do you do those at just a really high end, at a really high quality? That's consistency's my biggest aspect of the task. Is do you do it well all the time or part of the time?
Right. Because the consistency just creates an overall confidence for the entire practice. And then what happens when things aren't so consistent? You talk about these coaching moments. So it's a 5 to 10 minute check-in. So let's just say I'm a team member. Mm-hmm. You know, would you say about once a month you're checking in with them? Would you say that's about the right cadence?
Yeah, that's about right. You know, there's certain team members that need more and they have more frequent check-ins, and some don't need more, and that's not their personality profile, so they get a little bit less. So it's really kind of customized to the person. But yeah, if there is something we're working on, if there's something specific I'm coaching a team member, you know, I'll check in every few weeks and just say, how we doing, how can I help, where are we at, and that just keeps us all accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you talk about promoting dentistry, you know, and let's talk about that one, because people really kind of, sometimes they cringe when you talk to team members about that, or they hear that in the seminar. And I love it because I think everybody sells something. I have 4 kids that hard sell me every day. You know, I have a wife that really promotes a lot of different things. You know, there's, you know, everybody believes in something. And I think it's really important that when you have a team around you, got to be clear about what the expectations are around what makes it successful. Here is people believe in what you're doing every day. They believe it's the right thing. So can you talk about that when you come into the practice, in your practice, how you describe that component, or even if it's a team member that's been there for a long time, how you further describe that element?
Yeah, this is a huge topic. You said everyone believes in something. Mm-hmm. That's key. And so what I do is I talk to my team, again, open communication. I talk to my team about my why, you know, why I get up in the morning and why I do dentistry. And I was not born to do MOD resins. That's not what gets me going in the morning. Okay. Right. And so, but I really get a big kick out of, helping someone. And when they say, man, you made my life better. And when I can take a very fearful patient and build confidence in them, that's my thing. And so, Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, I read it. You told me to read it, and I just thought it was really awesome. And so from that day on, I just started talking about what I believe in, why I do the dentistry I do, what's my why, what's our practice mission or vision. And so what I focus on is not selling dentistry, or we need to, get people to do crowns or periodontal therapy, but it's, let's help people get better. Let's help people, become a better version of themselves through dentistry. And it took a while, but when the team gets on board with that idea, selling dentistry is easy because they're just talking to people and they believe it. And so all we do is talk about how we can help lives get better, and the dentistry just doesn't have to be sold. The patients want it.
Right, right. And you're just a great example of somebody who's passionate about what you do. And you and I have talked about this. Great leaders talk to people's hearts. Managers try to talk to people's heads. And now you have a little bit of both of that going on in any type of leadership position. But I think that's absolutely key, is that when your team understands the core values, they're excited about why you do it, it just makes everything so much easier throughout the course of the day. Now, what happens, again, I'll just ask this question because I do get this question. I have a hygienist and she doesn't, talk about dentistry that much, or she's a really great person, but gosh, she's worked with me for 10 years. Like, how would you approach that?
Yeah, it's hard. And it was about a 3 or 4 year process to take my hygienists. And now I really refer to them as not to the public, but within the team as restorative partners. Right. And so this idea, which ACT helped me with, but restorative partner is really what a hygienist should be. And so they are there to provide hygiene services and help the patient, but they're really my partner in talking about restorative dentistry, selling restorative dentistry, and telling the patient why they want it and why they need it. And it was such a process, but that's where these check-ins come in handy, right? And so we're talking to hygienists about becoming a restorative partner, and they're looking at me like, what the heck are you talking about? I said, you can't just talk about the weather. You got to talk about dentistry. That's hard, And so we talked about it. I said, here's my vision of how you're going to have a conversation with patients. Here's how I want you to hand that patient off to me when I come in. Let's look at it. Let's practice it. Let's talk about it. And after a few years, all of a sudden my hygienist said to me, this is really easy and this is the right way to do dentistry. But it took a while and it was tough, and you got to keep after it.
Yeah. Well, you have to be patient with yourself too, because nobody's ever going to make as many mistakes as you are and stay employed in your office like you and I have, so,
yes.
So the humility comes into play there. But when you're talking with the team now, I have so many questions. Do you document these conversations? Because I get that question all the time, or not so much. You just know that it's really something we've talked about. We've written it down once, and you're just doing a check-in every so often.
Yeah, the annual formal coaching review, I do document. And okay. I try to kind of type some notes so that I have some background information. The ongoing smaller ones, if there's a big issue, if there's something, really a conflict I need to manage, I'm a note taker by, that's who I am. So I'll jot down kind of those conversations just so I have my facts correct the next time I go and talk with them. But just the check-ins, I usually don't need to document that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then when you do bring, have you had any new people and recently coming to your team? I mean, in
the last year and a half, I've had two assistants.
Okay. How do you bring them into the new culture? Because some of them might not have been exposed to this. This might be completely new. How do you explain this to a new team member?
Yeah, there's a learning curve. Mm-hmm. And I'll just flat out say we're a little different here. We're much more communicative. We're open, and here's how we work. So, be prepared. But really, I'm trying to hire a person that I think will fit into that culture.
Right.
So, it goes back to hiring. But from the day they walk in, I just start talking with them about, here's how it works here. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's how I want you to communicate with your fellow teammates. That's so huge. And so just kind of here we go. But it's a learning curve for them usually.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a dentist, you kind of have to be the enforcer of all those rules too, because if you don't enforce them, it can discredit your leadership. And before you know it, you got weird stuff going on between team members and things like that. Are there times you just step in and go, hey, look, I just got to bring this to everybody's attention, or bring it up to somebody on your team? And I have to do it. We have to do it in every environment, even at home when children don't get along. So look, this is not working. That's not how you do this, type of a thing. How often do you step in when you see things going maybe not in the direction you want it to go?
I usually am involved behind the scenes.
Okay.
So my team's very comfortable coming and talking to me about this, that, and the other. But they know all I'm going to tell them is, how are you going to fix that? What's your plan? And so at first they really got irritated when I would say that. But I figure if they're not willing to have a conversation, an uncomfortable conversation with a fellow teammate, if they're not willing to do it, then it's certainly not worth my effort. Now, there are times when it just becomes a problem and I got to say, hey guys, we got to figure this out. But usually I'm kind of coaching, sometimes both parties behind the scenes, and that's worked tremendously. Everyone always knows I know everything because I have this open communication. So they're always like, I don't know how you do it, but you seem to know everything that's going on. And so I do a lot of coaching from behind the scenes and get involved not all that often. And that's a testament to my team because they've really taken to this communication and this culture of holding each other accountable. So now there has been a process through this transformation where there's some people that are no longer here. And some of that is they self-corrected and decided this wasn't the place and that kind of communication and culture wasn't for them. And I've had to let some people go. So I'm always trying to have this team that is a true team. And they know being part of this team, we're going to hold each other accountable. We're going to have awkward conversations. But the goal, the reason we're doing that is so we can all be awesome and be their best.
Yeah, and that's an important thing you're bringing up because a lot of times people think, well, getting better at restorative dentistry, this just gets easier. It doesn't. Bigger teams with bigger goals, sometimes there's more potential for conflict because when you're not shooting that high, you can go, hey, don't worry about that. And I think it's really important what you just said. You've got to be able to manage that as best you can. And there are times, nothing is forever. I always say everything is temporary. So people are on your team and then there may come a day where, hey, look, they're like, it's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just time. It's time to say, hey, look, let's free up each other's future and go in different ways. And that can be good. Now, I want to go back. I want to go back to so many things you said. When people bring things to you, you require that they bring a solution. Now, this is an age-old management, very strong and healthy way. Can you talk about that? Because some people are not aware of this whole technique or process. Explain that.
Yeah, there was years ago, I heard of this Cartman triangle. Cartman, I think it's called. You have the persecutor, and you have the victim, and you have the savior, if you will, down here. And the dentists, we often are put in this third triangle. If you connect the dots, bad things happen. And I read that, and then the next week, someone came to me, and this is before I knew any better. Someone came to me. And I went upstairs right away and I fixed it. And now both parties were mad at me. And I thought, well, that didn't work. So not connecting the lines in that triangle is so huge. Meaning, I'm here to coach, but come with a solution. What are you thinking? My thing is, what's your part in this? We always own part of the conflict. Right. And myself included. And so we talk about that and say, what do you own? How can you get better? Okay, what's your plan? What are you going to say? When are you going to talk to her? And how are you going to say it? And I'll coach on how I think they might want to approach that subject. And the beauty is everyone knows that I'm doing this behind the scenes. They know if they got an issue, I'm going to force them to have an awkward conversation. And so the result of doing that for many years is now they hold each other accountable, or at least that's the goal. I mean, we're far from perfect, but we're trying. We at least have a stated goal of this is how we want to talk to each other. And so we mess up all the time, but we're working at it. We keep working at it. Yeah.
It's so important too, because it's a very dynamic environment. You don't just get there and stay there. I mean, every relationship, whether it be your team, that constantly needs nurturing. And it can fluctuate from week to week. Now, the question comes up too. I hear this from team members. It's great that the doctor gives us feedback, but we don't have a feedback loop to give to the doctor. Now, you encourage the feedback. So do you not directly from team members? Because we can become our own worst enemies at times. How do you do that?
Yeah. So at that annual review, I tell them this is not about anyone else but you and me. So I don't want to hear about her, and I don't want to be her. We're talking about you. But then part of that is what can I do for you? What can I do differently? I mean, I do not want them to rate me on consistency because, all this stuff, I'm not, I'm not all that consistent as well. I have to, and they remind me too, hey doc, remember the system, you're supposed to do this, and yeah, thank you, let's do it. So I welcome feedback from them, and because it's going to make me better. It's going to make me a better person, better leader, better dentist, and when I'm better, they're better, and life is better. I mean, just everything works better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, and you mentioned this gets easier. Let's say I'm a young dentist watching this and go, Barrett, like, where do I start? Okay. Now, cause I'm terrible at these. When I do them, they're miserable. What would you say to somebody who says that? How do you just get started with this?
You just start, and it's awkward and uncomfortable. And I would start by saying, hey team, I'm going to try something. I don't know what I'm doing. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel cheesy. But I think it's important. So I'd like you to try it with me, and let's do it together and learn together. And man, what team's not going to embrace that?
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. I mean, who wouldn't like you? And then, hey, now this question comes up too. Now I get this pushback a lot, and this isn't necessarily, it's not from your office or, a lot of the teams we work with, but what about the CE component? Because you talk about, you've got attitude, task, promoting dentistry. You're a big CE fan. You take a lot of CE. When somebody comes into your culture, you let them know upfront CE is part of your job, or do you go, hey, if you want to, you can, type of a thing? How do you describe the learning component of what you do?
Yeah, I promote CE all the time. And if someone wants to go to a class, I'm going to pay for it. And at least once a year, if not more, we're all going to some lecture and some day-long class. And part of the Seattle Study Club and Milwaukee Study Club has a team event every year. So, and they know I'm going to be gone for CE, and it's important, and they respect it. And it's just part of, what we do. Mm-hmm. We also, I do my own little CE during our team meetings. Lately we've been reserving the first third of the meeting for kind of a self-help YouTube video or some kind of strategy that we're working on, and we all kind of help each other. So, I mean, self-improvement, getting better is just part of the culture.
Right. That's awesome. What pitfalls, what traps do you get yourself into when you're talking about this ingredient, to a high performing team? What are some of the things where you go, oh, I know I shouldn't do that we could learn from, that maybe it's a mistake that you've repeated over and over again, and just like, I don't want to do that again?
So many. The biggest for me, so my weak spot is when things don't go right, or it's chaos, or it's hectic. I get anxious, and I don't have control, and I wear it on my sleeve, and they know it. And so this healthy communication, well, if I'm feeling anxious, I don't communicate all that healthy sometimes. And so the biggest pressure, I think, as a leader is to walk the walk. What you're saying, you gotta be the role model, and that's really hard sometimes. So that's my thing is to show them that I want you to communicate in a healthy way. So I'm going to try my very best to do it as well. Yeah. And I usually do pretty well, and I'm getting way better. But as I tell them, I'm going to fail, and you got to hold me accountable. So tell me. Yeah. Come up to me and say, hey, doc, what the heck's going on this morning? I'll say, okay, sorry. Yeah, you're right. I'll get my head back on straight. And that works fantastic. Again, because they know I welcome the input, and because I've shared with them, hey, this is my weak spot. This is what I'm working on right now. So help me.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you go a little quiet, or are you a little shorter with your sentences type of a thing? Or or go a little introverted? I see dentists, everybody's got a default behavior. Sometimes like when I get stressed, I have to eat, or I'll do shorter sentences, or I'll go a little introvert. Now, you're not the type of dentist, but we've seen this other dentists throw instruments, but like, what's your default behavior when you get stressed? Is there anything that stands out?
I wish she was here. My sunshine pumper up at the front, Chrissy, she has this face. She caught a picture of me with my face, and it's my lips narrowed, my big eyebrows kind of tucked in, and she's got it printed out like on an 8x10, and she goes, "Oh, it's the doctor face." And I get introverted, I get quiet, I get kind of short, and as I've tried to explain to them, hold me accountable, but I want you to know I'm not mad at you. It's because I'm really worried that the dentistry is not going well, and I'm worried that I'm not doing a good enough job for that patient. That's huge too, is explaining, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling. Now what's coming out, what's being expressed, that's up to me to control. But it helps them to know, oh, he just wants this crown prep to go well, and it's not, and that's why he's being a little short and quiet, and his lips are pursed.
Well, you care a lot about what you do, and that can happen when things don't go, and it's just evident. You just do a fabulous job with this. Now, if you're watching this, I know how difficult this is. Trust me, I live in that world too. You want to be liked, right? As a dentist, you fear the day where you're upsetting people, but it's also critically important that you're being honest and straightforward about how they perform. Now, if people want to get a hold of you and ask you questions, and I'm going to encourage you, if you're watching this and you want to ask some tough questions, Barrett is awesome. He's a great leader, mentor, everything. He'll respond to you. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'd love to help, and I'll share my stuff with anyone who emails me. So Dr. Straub at straubdentistry.com. Just shoot me an email. Look me up online if you lose that email address, and I'd love to help. So just give me a call.
Absolutely. And if you come to any of our events, you'll see a little bit more of Dr. Straub. He's going to be teaching, and he's just I'm just so grateful for our friendship, buddy. You're an incredible leader, and it's awesome. I love your feedback and love your coaching and your teaching. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Kirk. It's all my privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know you have to run, but stay on just for a second. We're going to say goodbye to everybody else. I'm going to chat with you for just a little bit. But if you're watching today, you know this dentistry is hard. It's one of those things you can't do alone. You need the people around you, and having a great team is critical to your future, especially if you're watching this and you know that you have 3 more decades of practice. You've got to create a situation where you've got healthy people around you. So make it happen today. And if you're watching these, thank you again for watching. We really appreciate it. Share your comments. And if you enjoyed today, do me a favor, hit the share button. And until we see you next time, keep watching the Best Practices Show. You guys have a great day.